There we go. We are
There we
live.
go. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
It's always so ominous. Every time you say it, it's like it always has just that, oh, it is Friday the 13th. You know.
Do you know why Friday the 13th is considered unlucky?
No, I mean, other than the fact that the number 13 is supposed to be unlucky.
No, this was the date when, well, it was a Friday the 13th when the Pope and the King of France joined forces to attack the Knights Templar simultaneously, coordinated attacks all over Europe because they'd become too powerful as effectively the first bank. That's really the function of the Knights Templar, among other things. There's weirder stuff that you can get into, but because that was the date that became considered unlucky because it's when they took down the Knights Templar.
All right. Well, that's very interesting. And
what is I gotta do the research anyway?
No. It's nothing to do with research. This is all about the date. But I think it's funny because when you're not a history buff, you hear these little history factoids and you think to yourself, I've probably heard that before, but my brain puts it in a category of I will never need that information. So therefore, but it's always interesting. It's just my brain doesn't keep it. My brain has made a decision.
That's so
history factoids are not the things that stay in there.
That is interesting. Mine is like this massive index, kind of like my email with folders. Things are classified. They put in there. I may need that one day. Or my garage with screws left over from putting together 100 things. I may need that one day. So,
mine does that maybe with like craft supplies or like art supplies. Like I have, like if anybody were to say to me, Mom, any chance you have a piece of purple yarn? Well, purple's pretty obvious, but like an orange variegated yarn. I'm like, as a matter of fact, I do. Like, like it's one of those.
Right. 20 years ago, I had a fair amount left.
I just said to myself a little while ago, I saw one of those trifold poster boards that the kids use in school. And I was like, yeah, I mean, my youngest is turning 21 next week. I probably don't need the trifold anymore. Like
I will proudly say this, that I still have discs, literal discs for Windows 95. And I am sure that I have a charging cord somewhere for like my original, like 1995 phone. So because you may need it one day. So.
It's just so interesting. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go.
Just taking this down a totally different conversation, but
it was an interesting week, one way or the other. Interesting day, interesting week. Yes. So
happy Friday. At this point, if you're joining us, we have already had the Grit Forum, which means if you weren't listening last week, you missed the announcement that we are holding a contest that Carly is also sharing on social media. Thank you, Carly, Johnny on the spot. That if you can find the most pop culture references in the last Grit Report that was launched and released this week, Carly just shared the link to download it. Email the exchange at greenbook.org with your list of the pop culture references you found in it, and you will win a ticket to an IAX event. Because we're choosing one person, you and I can bounce back and forth about which event makes sense for you. So anyway, yes, that's what we're going to be doing. So we will announce the winner next Friday. Get in on the fun.
Getting on the fun. It's big, but it's great. So the report. And
now every time you read one of those, you will smile and you will say, aha, got another one. So absolutely. And if you're a skimmer of this report, you might skim and find them. So, you can read the sections you're going to read. Who knows if you'll be the one with the most. Yes. So maybe you skim faster than everybody else. So readers will do great. Skimmers can also do okay. So,
Absolutely. And we can give you a little hint. When we say pop culture, it's predominantly music, movies, TV, and literature. Now that still is really big, but the particularly music, there's a lot of music references in there.
So fun. Yeah. Anyway, right. Super fun. Let's get into it. So we're going to start with funding news, right? Because a lot of money was sort of flowing.
Follow the money
this past week, and we always say, follow the money, always. So investors are betting. So I don't know what you know about Tracksuit.
I
This was new to you, new to me.
that was aware of them. The brand tracking, syndicated brand tracking, effectively, right? Morning consult, GWI, variations of that, a little more tech centric.
Yeah.
AI driven, of course.
AI driven, but 25 million going into brand tracking software or platforms right now. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting to me because like, I feel like brand tracking is sort of like the industry stepchild in terms of methodologies, right? It's like you sort of have to do it. You have to track your brand, right? But it's not
It's because of
glamorous.
the data that they're collecting and how that data can be used outside. Brand tracking is a great excuse, entry point to collect a lot of information. And that information now can be unlocked in a variety of ways. We see other companies doing the same thing. You get the ones that I routed, GWI, Morning Consult, YouGov, Tracksuit. I mean, all of these guys are rocks. They're all expanding based off the data asset.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. So congratulations to them. And then also Outset, who, we've done a bunch of things with Outset. They've been on our stage. They've been on our podcast. 17 million Series A, scaling their AI interviewer technology. The one that comes to mind is because I believe I interviewed them with their client Away, the luggage company, on our podcast, talking about some of their kind of UX methodologies. So, that's a nice 17 million Series A is pretty good stuff.
Is. And think about that. So now we got in the last 3 months, Outset, Conveo, Listen Labs, all with really large Series A rounds. 17 million. I think Conveo was about 17 million. Listen Labs 27 million. Follow the money.
Yeah. The thing is, if you're not following Listen Labs, so we track them because they're a competition winner, and Alfred, they've come to our events, and he's a future list honoree this year. If you're not following him on LinkedIn, he's somebody to pay attention to because he's also meeting with some very, not just big investors, but big companies. He just posted last week, and it didn't make it into our brief. So Carly, we don't have a link here, but he posted kind of, being in a meeting with, the CEO of Microsoft. And I'm like, this company is moving and shaking. And, I remember when they were on stage at our event and nobody knew who they were. Mm-hmm. And they had this very sort of simple kind of quality scale methodology that won, in that competition. And I think there is something that they have done, which is making insights, the kind of the gathering of insights in quality scale, very understandable to people who are not insights professionals. And I think that is part of what they're doing to win right now. And I just think watching them is one of my favorite things, because I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing.
I was in a conversation, not too much of a side line, but I was in a conversation yesterday with an established company in the space who's building out a series of AI tools that are primarily kind of merging quant and qual. Anyway, they're demoing it to me. And it occurred to me I was looking at the demo from a feature standpoint. It's like, here's the challenge for you. You have to build for two audiences at once. One is future users who are not trained in research, or current users who are not trained in research, that they only want you to trust that I'm getting the right answer. Everything else is noise. The other is the current users who expect a certain feature set because there's a business process that we use. Like the example I was just, can you download it as an editable chart object in PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
And so to your point, it's interesting, know your audience. Listen Labs is not, they're targeting a different population. The same thing like Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey. They didn't become who they were because they were selling into research organizations. They were selling to CX, into marketing. Listen Labs and the others are all targeting those things as well. Of course, Listen Labs, it doesn't hurt when Sequoia is your backer.
Exactly.
So you get the meeting with.
Suddenly you're at a lot of tables.
But follow the money, guys. I mean, and that's where it's this jockeying of, because there's three companies we just mentioned, all fundamentally kind of doing the same thing, right? There's variations, of course, but they're all targeting different user bases and different segments, and that's kind of where we are right now in the space. So
yeah. Well, let's mention this last bit of money. So we talked about Outset.
A little bit.
Let's just talk about this little company called Meta, shall we?
Yes, Meta. They wanted to acquire Scale AI. They did not. They did not do that effectively. They bought 50% for $14 billion. 50% of that company for $14 billion. Here's what really jumped out at me. You think, wow, Meta, Instagram. What's the messaging app? The
Messenger.
No, the other one they bought.
Oh, WhatsApp.
Anyway, they have access to tons of data. But we know from what we talked about last week, I think before last, almost 50% of all web traffic, in particular on social media platforms, is bots. So, yes, they have access to a massive amount of data, but half of it is bullshit. So it's not usable. So they want to build Llama, right, more effectively. They need access to quality first-party training data. We've been talking about this for 3 years now, right? Or as long as we've been doing this show. That's what drove that. So if your panel companies, et cetera, right? It's not as simple as it was just access to people. There's a whole piece of technology built around that makes the data usable and effective for design for AI training sets. So it's not that simple, but a piece of it is certainly getting access to people to do things. $14 billion. One company.
$14 billion. Well, let's segue from getting access to people into 3 product launches this week.
To
personas.
That's right. Build off of the data, right? I mean, that's the segue. What are they doing? So
like 3 different companies came up this week that are showing how AI-driven personas and kind of interviewers and whatever are helping us, in our industry, right? So starting with Bolt, who Bolt, they sort of, have chat AI, but they have expanded their capabilities with new dynamic personas and mega analysis features through this Bolt Chat AI platform. So, big announcement. It's another quality scale concept. They are often a sponsor at our events. So they were just at the Grit Forum with us. So interesting expansion of their capabilities and more power to them.
Absolutely. And personas, right, cut to the chase, right? Get to the output. That's a fundamental way to do that. Then data diggers, they're Synthio, using AI platform using persona modeling to simulate audience responses and test research hypotheses. Those types of things, using that language, testing hypotheses. I love that.
Yeah.
Like that's a no-brainer. That's not a scary, you're going to replace research. Like, we're testing ideas. Then you go do real research. You're simulating audiences. So that was good. And then
good stuff.
Then Research for Good. So
what was funny about this? So Research for Good launching their is it QUIP? As I look at this, I'm like
Quip.
Quip, AI-driven engine leveraging personas to improve data quality. Right, optimizing participant fit. So we're making sure they're like, all right, they're making sure these personas are the right personas based on good quality data and good, legit human beings. But what I want everyone to know when we share this, it's like, we just shared like 3 launches in this past week for this kind of persona-based methodologies. Lenny and I don't go through things and say, let's find persona launches. Like we just kind of share what's happening and then we pull it together on a Friday morning to say, what are we going to share with you? And I just think it's really interesting timing, right? 3 this week alone that are focused on personas. For those of you who are thinking that, this synthetic data stuff was a trend that maybe wasn't going to take off. No.
Right. And what's interesting here is it's easy to kind of dismiss this. Everybody's chasing the same bright, shiny object. These are business professionals, leaders, investors, et cetera. That's naive bullshit to think that. So, right, there is a use case. They are finding the use case. We're definitely in that process. We're absolutely in the fit for purpose, finding where things fit, for sure.
For sure.
But you don't build something because you hope somebody's going to buy it. You build it because you know there's already a market for it, and then you want to grow that market.
Yeah.
So that is what is happening.
Yeah.
And it's happening at a faster pace than any other new introduction of solutions we've ever experienced. So pay attention, guys. We can't. It's so. I was in a meeting this week. Somebody was at the APOR event, right? APOR is like, the academics and the pollsters, and they're the ivory. I mean this in no disparaging way. Kind of the ivory tower of pure scientific research folks, right? The guys who bemoan that we're still not using RDD, dialing for everything, which again, not disparaging. I get it. Point was, they're clueless on all of this. And that was the comment, like, they don't know anything about any of this stuff. They just don't know. And like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
maybe the directive is, if you're listening to this show, tell a friend.
Especially if they work in academia.
We'll keep you up to speed. You don't have to do what we do and pay attention to all the research. You don't have to be the one who's like, let me start following all these AI companies and getting a Google Trends alert for it. You don't have to do. We will do the work for you, but
yes, that's our job.
Just keep paying attention, because there's a lot. It's hard to keep up with, and just because the rate of change is so much, it's really hard to keep up with. And anyway, we keep trying to make that easy on you. So
absolutely. We'll keep showing the trend line.
Yeah. And I mean, so speaking of, segue into relevant launches of what's needed and the companies to pay attention to. Dynata is, coming off of the persona stuff. However, recognizing the need for data quality at this point in time, perfectly timed launch, in my opinion. They've enhanced their AI-driven data quality tool, Quality Score, expanding its availability and adding some new features to it. So I think we're probably going to see more of the big players saying data quality, like, you can trust us, now that we've kind of settled down a little bit after the initial wave of the opinions for good scandal. I think now we're going to see these companies saying, like, you can trust us for data quality. Here's why. Yeah. And here's what we've built, and here's what we've put into place. And maybe we weren't ahead of it, 6 months ago, but we are now. I expect to see more and more of that. I'm sure you do too.
Yes. And just to be clear, earlier we were talking about research for good, not opinions.
Absolutely. Isn't that funny? I had the same thought. I was like, oh yes, no, this is research for good. Because apparently we want to do good in this world, right? We do. We want to do.
Yeah. Research for good. They're good folks. They're doing good stuff, right? Opinions for good. They're the ant farm, right? So we But
and remember, let's be fair. Not everybody that was there.
100%.
There were lots of good people who were victims as well. So
100%, and it's still allegedly. Nobody has been convicted of anything. So anyway, all right. Kantar, their live rapid qual quant tool across 45 markets. That is a partnership with another company. I don't know if that's public, so I'm not going to say who it is. So that's what I zeroed in on. This was really cool for Kantar, someone of their scale, to identify a need and to amplify the opportunity to effectively sell. Let somebody else develop the tech, right? And the solution, they've white labeled it, and now they're bringing it, to market to really scale that, which is a great way for these big companies. It's a great example of these big partnerships. As companies develop technology, to partner with someone that has that scale and reach and let them go sell the hell out of it. And that's what they're doing. So very cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And neurons, another kind of good, solid, consistent partner of Green Book, launching Brand Kit, an AI tool providing creative recommendations. We could have dedicated an entire show, or we could dedicate an entire show to creative. Some of this stuff kind of falls by the wayside, time permitting, but their tool is kind of helping marketing teams and with brand identity work.
Right.
And I'm making an assumption there's behavioral science behind it without even really having checked it, since Neurons is known for their kind of behavioral science expertise.
Yep.
But But this is another area that is so closely linked. So closely linked to the work of all the insights professionals is what marketing is doing, or many of the professionals, what marketing is doing, what creative development comes out of it. I did just see an ad that actually made it to prime time. That was all done, script with AI, and then video production with AI, and then ended up on like primetime television. So, I just think it's really interesting because that's what's happening.
Yes. And they were AI before AI was cool. Right.
Yeah.
So just because we have known it for a long time, Dr. Thomas Ramsay, a good friend, a neuroscientist, right?
Yeah.
And they were playing with things like visual intensity models, which was the early stages of this, right? Mimic where the eye is going to be drawn, and they'd map it, and okay, well, let's move this creative, make the lady in red stand out more, right? And now they're developing through and incorporating, to your point, that leveraging AI to make it more scalable and effective. Very cool.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and let's flip the order of these last two bullet points to kind of stay with that, because this HubSpot integration. So now we're kind of getting a little more meta with the lowercase m for all of y'all, and it's more of this kind of big picture of what's happening. So HubSpot integrates OpenAI ChatGPT to provide CRM access. So it's working with ChatGPT right into your customer database. Many people use HubSpot. They have a lot of other ones as well, but they're working with this simple AI concept that will allow queries to happen right in your CRM. That will help you, really explore, question, interact with your CRM data. And I that was one of those things that I've actually drafted an article we're going to be publishing about this one, because this is just another example of how this technology is going to be integrated into daily processes, not just the big picture research methodologies. This is kind of daily processes, which is also very similar to, I think, the article that you pulled up because you're a big Perplexity fan. So about Perplexity Labs.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that in a second. I actually have a question. You and I so you've dived into the HubSpot. I have not. So my thought when I saw it was, wow, so you'll be able to create. That's a huge step towards powering individualized marketing.
Yeah.
So using the marketing component, a drip campaign, right?
Yeah.
So am I right that you could profile customers, have these certain, attributes or interests, use and set up targeted campaigns towards them in a very finite way? Is that
it's yes, and it's basically letting you query just like you would with anything else, what's in there, and then follow the path. So, show me 5 of the people in our CRM that who are the last ones that bought, like say you're a small research company and you sell brand tracking, like who are the people in our database that purchased brand tracking projects with us 5 years ago. And then it's like you see all right, so those are our lapsed users, right? And then it's like, what else have they purchased anything? So you basically are engaging now in a conversation with your CRM to then be able to deliver custom offerings to them. Help me write an email to pitch this thing that they haven't sold in a long time based on what I've learned about them since. I mean, it's a whole agentic ecosystem right there in your CRM. Which is a highly usable customer intelligence tool. That's really what it is. Kind of the tool now is in your CRM platform, and you don't have to go the other way. It's right there in your CRM.
So another example we were talking about earlier when we started off of unlocking new value from existing data sets, like the Tracksuit, right? The brand tracking companies, right? So we're unlocking new things that we couldn't really get to before easily, and now we can. Well, so Perplexity, you queued me up on that. I'm a big fan. So they have, and I have not. It is on my to-do list this weekend. They launched the Perplexity Labs, which just does all types of cool stuff. Particularly, so you create quizzes, media kits, presentations. That's what I have a deliverable for a client that I'm thinking about. That's like, all right, I'm going to try this in Perplexity. I'm going to go through and see if it will create a presentation for me that way. Because I have not found anything that does that particularly well. Another example, right? So are they aiming to be the next kind of replacement for Office or for Google, Google Sheets, et cetera? Well, yeah. But all within the Perplexity ecosystem. And I'll tell you, I mean, again, this isn't it for, I like Perplexity because I don't worry about it ever hallucinating. So it started as AI search, right? So I like if I'm doing a market assessment, a competitive market assessment, right? I trust the data.
Yeah.
But to date, it's just your standard output and have to take it and go do something else with it.
Yeah.
So things like this are addressing the usability unlock.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, well, I've done in like a workflow would be, I've done the market assessment of these companies. Oh, I want to look at it this way.
Yeah.
It should enable us to do that. So what does that do to workflows? Here's the real key takeaway, and I'll shut that up. If you are a small research organization, right? A consultancy, right? Specialist boutique, and you're thinking, what the hell do I do with all this stuff?
Right.
These are the type of tools that will give you the superpower to compete from a speed standpoint, which will equate to cost reductions, which gives you competitive edge as well. But not just that. It does unlock more value. Oh, now I can pull this and this and this, and I can put it together and I can think about things. These are the type of tools that you need to pay attention to because they're going to give you competitive edge rather than needing to invest in, oh my God, now I have to have this whole other third-party software. Well, no, a lot of the big platforms are powering you with those things now.
I just found a platform and I'm not ready to share because it just came across my desk this morning and I played with it. And it's a deep research platform specific for, B2B use. So basically go on in there and say, I want to target this company, and give them a little bit of background about why they're important to you. And it does deep research on everything you need to know about that company, including what they may have done with other vendors, if it's out there for them to find, what they've done with you, if it's out there for them to find, and then customizing, okay, here's what we've learned about them. Here's how other people have leveraged them. Here's how you've leveraged them. Here are some need gap analysis. And it's was all at the click of a button. And in 5 minutes, I started to explore it. So again, doesn't feel ready for prime time for me yet to share with this audience, but I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And it was one of those things where you could use it for targeting a job hunt. I want to know more about, company X. I want to get high, all right. So who just got a lot of money? Let's go back on up there. Outset, tell me what you know about Outset, because I'm applying for this job and I want to know everything there is to know about Outset, in particular this position. And that's how I had experimented with it, actually using my own role at our company, which is just very random.
And write a proposal. You want to put
it was this is what you should talk about on an interview. Here are good follow-up questions. Here's how you improve your ROI in that position. So, I basically did the work for someone who would want to kick me out of my role and be like, what would they say on a job interview?
So I see why you want to keep that, on the down low now.
Well, no, it was a really interesting use case, right? Of doing company research, which is one of the ways to stand out today, but letting AI help you with the company research, helping them evaluate what's the ROI for your position, or what would you need to prove if you were to take the position? What are some things you can say on the interview to, show your worth? And I'm like, well, this is interesting. And then I started to play with it as a potential sales tool. So, these platforms are just going to be popping up everywhere to make our lives easier.
I was on that same call I mentioned earlier with the company that's showing demoing their stuff. The CEO, who I've known forever, he is not a developer, nothing like that, he's like, yeah, I sat down for an hour and I just cranked this out, as a demo, as proof of concept. And because to your point, the barrier to entry creating these platforms is like,
they're there. They're there.
Right. So if you can imagine it, you can try it. Not everything is going to work perfectly out of the gate. That's for sure. Right. But the opportunity to create and do new stuff, and then in that case, find like, hey, here's a niche. Putting those things together, absolutely. Or the agents you've put together, which you're far more advanced. I have not done that yet. I have not put together my own agents. So you're the secret agent woman.
All my mom and dad, who continue to say, like every time they see Tim, they're like, "So Tim, what's new in AI?" And he just shakes his head, like, "Have you talked to your daughter?" Like,
she's actually doing it every single day.
They have no. My parents still to this day have no idea what I do, or like they just have no idea. So that's fine.
Yeah. All right. So in the spirit of Friday the 13th.
Excellent. I was like, are we going to do this? Did you read this?
I did. I did not read all that. This is one of those things that all I need to know is the summary, and it's like, I get it. I don't want to know anymore.
I know. Okay. So it was in the New York Times this morning. And I very quickly did a Google search for it because the New York Times articles aren't necessarily shareable. So you may be blocked from seeing this New York Times article. Might be worth it to use a free trial just to read this article in the spirit of Friday the 13th. And then also go to the Reddit thread, which Carly, share the Reddit thread also, because the Reddit thread it happened very quickly to somebody saying, "So what do you all think of this article?" And hundreds of people, and this was at 6 a.m., were already on it. So it's something to pay attention to. Basically, this company, Mechanized, San Francisco startup, and they're developing tools to automate all jobs, pretty much all white collar jobs, every single one of them. They would like this AI to do it all. And to do everything. Basically, the article goes on to explain and then challenge them a bit, like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, then we'd have to have kind of an economic system where everybody is free to pursue their passions. Then they don't need to work. So it does devolve into a different type of society, which, again, the Reddit thread like really digs into too. But it's this whole idea of like, yeah, we can replace everything, and they want to train AI to do everything. And so you read it, and then you just think like, what the actual hell? And there's a part of me that was like, you silly Silicon Valley junkies that just want to do something like that and make billions as it sucks up all the jobs. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, is that what's going to happen? Like, you could get gloom and doom pretty quickly. So Friday the 13th.
There you go. Well, and combine that with the robot revolution later on this year, performing labor-based tasks, right? I mean, like, carry this, do that,
right.
Things, right. I don't know. Are we going to wind up like, Wall-E?
What did George Jetson actually do for a living? That's the question I started to have.
He pushed buttons.
He pushed buttons, so we still need button pushers.
Yeah.
Like, what did they even do for work on the Jetsons? Because he left for work a lot.
It's really, we could go off for a whole. I've really been thinking about this whole lot as it relates to our industry. We'll have to talk more about it at some point. But there's a term. There's two terms that we've mentioned before that you look it up. Right. One is service as a software. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? Right. The other is wisdom worker, not knowledge worker, wisdom worker. Those two concepts, I think, are incredibly important. We won't go into it because we're at time. Look them up. They're really interesting for if you are in this world, a white collar job.
Yeah.
Separating function, process from expertise. Maybe that's the best way to kind of think about it. Yeah. And what does that look like overall? Yeah. And it's just here where we are, guys, right? Because somebody's going to, does somebody give these guys $14 billion to do this? If not, they probably will soon. So
I literally, put in the brief, and then we'll wrap, was like, do we even share this? Because it is fairly gloom and doom. This whole concept of basically saying in the next few years, this could be a reality. So, like read the article, read it and weep, and then recognize that this is an extreme example. But this was an extreme newsworthy example because it was so kind of evocative. But what does that mean? That means shore up your skills right now.
Absolutely.
For the immediate future.
Right.
Right.
If your skill's a commodity, you may not have felt that, but now it's probably going to be. So what's wisdom, experience, those type of things? I mean, I think all that, being a coder 2 years ago, become a coder, son, be a coder. And I was like, oh, that was a bad choice. Right?
Be a coder? What the heck?
So remember the Little Shop of Horrors in the spirit of Friday the 13th. Son, be a dentist, Steve Martin.
Gotcha.
Anyway, you have a talent for causing people pain. Anyway, it's a really funny thing. You've never seen that. It's a great movie. All right.
Yeah.
There we go. We digress.
I just want to say, Anish, we see you. We are just deep in conversation here, but we see you. Thank you for for adding to the conversation that's happening online. We really appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't say safe travels. IEX Europe next week.
Thank you. Yeah, leave tomorrow. So, I head to the airport early afternoon. We'll land on Sunday morning. I think most of the team lands on Sunday morning, and we'll have 2 days of setup before the big event.
Yeah, so we're over 900, right?
It's going to be big, and it's so funny because I just kept thinking, oh, it's not going to be as big this year, but silly me. So,
and massive client side attendance.
Yeah.
Hats off to the entire team for that. That's I don't normally have FOMO about Europe. I do this year.
Yeah.
That's big and cool.
What? It's also what's interesting is it's not just organic spots, but also our sponsors in Europe. They, the majority, I would say, more than half of the sessions on our agenda feature a brand side partner. They've really, the partners over there have really gotten the memo that that's important. Is that our audience collectively wants to see how people are using the services and how they are evolving with the industry. So, and it also shows, that level of partnership, which shows the human connection at work as well, which I think is really important. So, so really my gratitude goes to so many of our sponsors who are on stage, as well as our organic speakers.
Last thing I'll say about that, Cannes is this week as well. Right?
Yeah.
So we're going head to head against Cannes, which probably is not a good decision. We shouldn't do that again. But the fact that we have 900 people.
Yeah. Well, there is a day overlap. So I think that one is through Tuesday, and then ours is Tuesday, Wednesday. So some people are doing both. But again, as I shared on someone's LinkedIn post, I don't remember whose, not everybody who is in insights and analytics informs creative and wants to be over there. So not everybody, a lot of people do. A lot of people, that's a big part of it, is the insights that's informing kind of creative design and so on and so forth. But it's not, we've talked Venn diagrams before, like these are two Venn diagrams and there is some overlap, but they're not, it's not, not everybody is in both concentric circles. So
we'll get yachts next year. So nobody has to feel like they missed anything. So
I don't think we can get yachts. We might be able to get, canal boats, but
we'll call it a canal yacht. All right.
I'm sure there is a partner that's taking people. Because I feel like that happened a few years ago. You weren't there.
It did. I think Hot Specs took people out.
I was going to say, didn't Hot Specs do a canal boat ride or something like that? Like, I feel like they did. And anyway, that's one of my favorite things to do there. I'm not doing one this year. I didn't get an invite to anything, so I don't really know what's happening in terms of canal rides. But
if you are a sponsor at IEX Europe and you're doing something cool, invite Karen. So
well, let me clarify. I've gotten an invitation. It's the canal one specifically. So
if you're doing a canal ride, invite Karen. All right. On that note, safe travels. Everybody have a great weekend. A lot going on in the world. Everybody, hang in there, be safe. And we'll talk next Friday.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you, everybody, and good to see you, Lenny. We'll see you next week, and I will be sleep deprived, but I will show up.
I'm looking forward to that. So, bye, everybody.
Right. See you soon, everybody. Bye.
Bye.